That's kind of the little bit of marketing that I got told off for not including last time I did this talk. Most of this will actually be more of a tech talk. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what Cloudformation and Lambda are. I'm going to walk you through a series of demos. Those demos are going to include a couple of interesting ways of using Lambda, both as a way of driving custom resources and also driving updates to your Cloudformation templates. I'm going to show you something that looks a little bit like a PaaS. It works very similar to how our product works, but with lots of rough edges sort of on it, because it's easier and also want you to buy something still. I'm going to cover some hints and tips, like some stuff that doesn't work, some stuff that you might want to try, and then I'm going to have some questions, some of which will be for you. Before I continue, I have this horrible tendency of moaning a little bit when I talk about these products. Like, I do genuinely really love them. And that's not just because last time I gave the talk there was somebody who built one of them in the room. But yeah, maybe somebody's here now. Anyway, so Lambda. Okay, who's used Lambda before? Like, cool. We're also good at putting hands up. That's nice. Who's heard of Cloudformation? Cool. Who's used it? Just keep your hand up if you used it. Who enjoyed using it? Cool. Okay. Nice. So for those that don't know, Lambda is a scalable serverless platform. It runs Java, JavaScript, Python, but also some other things if you're willing to get a little bit dirty and hack at it. It plays nicely with lots of other Amazon services, and because it hooks in with SNS and Kinesis, it's kind of unlimited what you can drive events with. Cloudformation, on the other hand, is a way of you defining your stack in JSON. It supports most AWS services, and you can do all the stuff that it can't do by building your own Lambdas and popping them in the scripts. So I'm going to walk you through as a way of sort of demoing these services. That's meant to be a dude on the left. I'm not sure what's happened to his face. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about a demo where you would use a Cloudformation template and you would say you want HTTPS from the client to the ELB, and then between the ELB and the back end, how you would create some self-signed certificates, how you would load them from S3 when you have an auto-scaling event. And hopefully that's kind of interesting, right? Because it's something you can't do without the Lambda. So I guess this is the trigger warning. This is mostly live demo. It might go horribly, horribly wrong. But we'll give it a go. So this is Cloudformation. Ignore the fact that I have some limited confidence and pre-provisioned loads of stuff. But it's pretty easy to use. So you can create stacks. You can upload. Say a simple example here. All of this is on my GitHub profile, which I'll show you at the end so that you're not looking at it while I'm talking. And before I show you, I'm just going to kick this off because it takes a little while to spin up. I'm just going to say bar, app name bar. And because I'm running this on my account and I'm a bit cheap, I'm only going to have one. Part of an accelerator that only just today told us that we get like £100,000 of credit. That was like a really nice surprise that they didn't mention until today. So maybe next time I'll scale a few more. So anyway, that's kicked that off. What am I going to show you first? So this is what the template looks like. In here you've got parameters. You've got things where you can set descriptions. You can say, oh, it has to obey this regex. You have mappings that you can see here. So one of the slightly frustrating things is that if you have to explicitly say for each region what AMI you want to use. Here you can see an example of a resource, a security group, and you see the get attribute is a way of you sort of pulling an attribute out of another resource that you've made. I'm going to skim down this. Don't look at this bit. This is kind of hideous. And in the end, you have some outputs. So if we go back to the Cloudformation that is still in progress, you get to see it creating some of these resources. It's creating them complete, so hopefully there should be a nice output. And if I were to put that in my browser, it would obviously work first time. But I'm just going to show you that this, it just gives you a little app that says some configuration. Now, what that's not doing is any of the HTTPS stuff. So if you wanted to do one of those, you would load. that one. This template is way more complicated, and it has way more parameters. Let's pick something unique. Another, again. And that's going to spin, oh yeah, this is fun. And that's going to spin up in the background. And again, it's created that certificate using the custom resource, which I will show you here. So where is it? It is here, right. So you see the ELB backend certificate. Is this big enough? Can people actually see? Let's. Well, okay. Okay, cool. So as you see here, it's pointing to a Lambda function. It's pulling out the public key, I think, and the app itself is responsible for pulling out that private key so that you. It's just a self-signed key. The way we've done this for this demo, if you look at the code, it's kind of horrible. It's not encrypted or anything like that, but that's just for simplicity sake. So, stop that. So a couple of things. So in terms of grumbles, like custom resources can be really super annoying if they don't work first time. Like basically never make a mistake with your custom resources, because if the Lambda doesn't return to say, oh yeah, it didn't work, it just sits there for what feels like ever while you wait for it to time out. Templates can be incredibly verbose. So if you look at that HTTPS example, if you do something fairly simple like adding a VPC, it's kind of great that it's powerful that you can configure every little thing. It kind of sucks that you have to configure every little thing. There's no looping, which I find like kind of crazy, but you can get around that problem by using, say you drove it from Python, and you can like use Ginger to template the template, which is kind of nice. IAM permissions are kind of crazy. Like it's a right pain. Okay, I won't swear. Sorry. It's a right pain to generate these, and you kind of have to keep iterating. It always takes way longer than you think it will. And like, whatever you do, don't change anything. If you provision something with Cloudformation, never mess with it, because it just freaks out, and it will fail in interesting ways. If you put something in a bucket that it didn't know was in there, and then you try and delete the bucket, it gets very upset. So when should you actually, I've kind of said that, I kind of make it sound not that awesome, but when should you use it? So if you keep rebuilding the same stack, it's great. If you need to do the same thing in 6 months' time, say you did this demo 6 months ago and you want to do it again, it would have been awesome if I'd actually Cloudformed it. If you want other people to be able to use it, but also if you want teams to be able to self-service, it's kind of a really nice way of limiting their access, but allowing them to do something quite powerful. Build a stack in little bits that you don't have to have these horrible rollbacks. Split out your templates, like do little bits, like have something create the certificate once, get that bit working, have something set up the ELB, get that bit working, and then put the two together. Makes it a lot easier to develop these things. Deploy something that works, like just even if it's really simple, and then build up. And maybe like assume an IAM role to like deploy the stack and see whether it works, and it'll give you yet another error and give it another permission and see what happens. So that's all kind of fun, but what if you wanted to actually turn this into a little internal PaaS? And I kind of hate following good speakers who have just gone and open source an amazing tool. But if you were still wanting to make your own, this is kind of the beginnings of it. So imagine in the first step that you have something like an API gateway, like a Chalice, like a Zapper, and you'll use that to drive DynamoDB. So one of the nice things about DynamoDB is it can create events into SNS, which the Lambda can then look out for. The Lambda can go, hey, somebody wants to create a new app. Great. So it goes off to Cloudformation and says, all right, set up this, this new stack. Once that stack is created, it can update SNS again, which the Lambda picks up on again, and says, oh, great, we've got a new stack, or maybe it's deploying. Update the DynamoDB, and you get like a nice interface that you could put behind a web service. So the risk of this not working again, here is DynamoDB for people that haven't used it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick, I'm kind of lost for a name. Can somebody just call out a name? Name. Okay, good, thanks. That was great work. Cool, so we're going to have name. We're going to version. Going to deploy master of the project. I'm going to say scale. God, I'm going to go crazy. We'll have two. And as you can see, I've just added a row to that table. Now, in the background, all those lambdas were kind of firing off and feeding back data. So hopefully, fingers crossed, if I hit refresh now, it says deploying. Yes, great. OK, cool. So if we went back into Cloudformation, you'll see name is failing. This is obviously on purpose to show you how good the error messages are. No, that's right. Great. Let's ignore that happened, and let's look at the one that worked a little bit earlier. As we can see here, there are lots of resources which have. Sorry. You reckon try a different name? Okay, right. Oh, great. Okay, right. Right. Name. Another. Oh, right. Another name. Who thinks this one might be reserved? Okay, cool. Insert string version master scale. Right. Okay, cool. What do we think the chances are this time? Oh. Oh, nice. Okay, thank you. That's a really good spot. Okay, cool. Well, this is my personal account, so I haven't set these things up. Okay, well, great. Let's ignore that. Okay, so so where did we get to? So assuming that live demo had worked flawlessly, the IAM permissions are really hard to write. Permissions offer you basically no protection against malicious use. So if you went and ran my code, you kind of have to trust that I'm not going to do something horrible to your AWS account. But they do protect against me doing some stupid stuff on your account, right? So it's like the level of trust you have in me. I get packaging bugs. Like, has anybody tried to deploy something that uses like a cryptography library in Lambda? Has anybody tried anything like that? Like, you get really weird linked library problems between what you're pushing from your development machine and what you're pushing out to AWS. And the log events sometimes get a bit mixed. So DynamoDB is kept in sync pretty nicely. The logging is pretty good, even though it's sometimes a little bit hard to follow. Debug statements are great. Like, put a debug statement around the entire event that you get at the beginning of your code. It does get incredibly verbose, though, if you set debugging on, because Boto just loves sort of spewing logging information. And also, just anything that runs on Amazon Linux should run on Lambda. So if you're getting these sorts of problems with the packaging, just package it on Amazon Linux and then deploy from there, and it kind of will work. I promise. So takeaways. Cloudformation can be awesome. Like, it is a really cool tool. Lambda kind of makes it even better if you can use it to do the bits that Cloudformation can't do, and if you can use it to spin up apps. But I think that the takeaway that I've had is, like, if you can deploy a new app and a new environment in 15 minutes, that actually completely changes the way your business works compared to if you take 15 hours to do something. And I know this because when we did this similar thing at HM Revenue Customs, like, they went from a scenario in which they were sort of taking a simple project and taking 3 years of waterfall to deliver something, and sort of having a 3-month code freeze in front of the key event, like, I'm going to pick tax credits because it's kind of nicer than self-assessment, but something like tax credits. And they changed it once they had this tooling that they could rely on to being like a release every day during the middle of the key event, right? And that's just a completely different way of you serving your customers, that they got feedback, customers were disappointed with the service, and they made it better in real time, and that's just so much better. We kind of have this question, what would happen if you went from 15 minutes to 15 seconds? What if, instead of you just pushing your feature branch to Git, you could push it to an environment, and you could send somebody a link to see your changes? Like, how would that make you try out new things even better? And that's something that we're kind of actively prototyping. So that's kind of my talk. I kind of have questions for you, though, because it's way more fun when I ask you questions. One is, like, we're a startup. We really need some feedback on how this service works, and we'd really love to hear what your advice is on sort of getting into these more paranoid organizations. Like, I'm willing to barter coffee, pizza, beer, whatever your poison is within reason. We've also got a couple of products that are sort of ready for you to try out, which we're giving away free credits for. Our sort of prototype, our aim was that we can put all the instructions on the back of a business card. So we've got some business cards. I think a couple of us are somewhere in the audience. We're going to try and hand them out to people to see if see how you like that 15-second experience. But yeah, like that's my talk. Thank you very much for listening. I'm happy to take some questions.
Hi. Yeah.
Hello.
Do you develop or work with partners on setting up the architecture or designing the architecture and then implement it, or do you leave that and provide the tools to the clients to then develop their own architecture on Cloudformation and the other services? Yeah.
So we built a platform, a product that, from our experience, meets the needs of 90% of people who are making sort of services that are running in the cloud. You know, web services, especially being a target, you know, for the right money, we'll do something different. But I think, you know, that is our focus at the moment. It's making a reusable product. We've got a couple of people. Jeremy and Ulrika, do you want to like wave so that people can see who you are? There we go. Jeremy and Ulrika, who obviously were here on time, and that's why they're at the back. Thanks, guys.
Any other questions, folks?
Are there any tools that would have made this easier? Like, as you looked at what we were doing, like Terraform, Troposphere, has anybody used either of those? Terraform. Are they any good? Is it worth me learning? Yes. Cool. Okay, just do it. Okay. Nice. What about for the API gateway stuff? Like, anybody used serverless, Zapper, Chalice? Which is your favorite? Anybody? No favorites? Everybody loves everything? Cool. Yeah, none of them are great yet. Okay, cool.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much. Much appreciated, Ben.